Was there a particular like practice or skill set or meditation or anything that you used to gain that sense of clarity amidst that kind of that initial friction between your mind and heart?
Yeah, I mean, shadow integration to a large degree is actually the bridge between mind and heart.
Mm-hmm.
Like specifically shadow integration, especially when you add that analytical element of it, once because that's where the mind meets the body and it's where the mind meets the heart and all that sort of stuff. Because it's like, okay, your emotions are in your body and it's your mind that goes in there and attempts to make sense of everything.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, okay, I'm experiencing all these emotions. Let me go in there with my mind, look at what I'm experiencing, hold space for it, analyze it, try to understand it, try to take out or try to extrapolate the needs that need to be met and go ahead and start meeting those. So on a fundamental level, shadow integration itself is the bridge between body and mind and heart and mind. And the other interesting thing about it is that it bridges pretty much everything because shadow integration is the practice of integrating opposites. And like this symbol that I wear around my neck is the alchemical philosopher's stone. And the philosopher's stone, obviously, it's from an anime, which I have a sticker from that anime as well,
Mm-hmm.
because it's my favorite of all time. But in their version of alchemy isn't based in anything real. However, the ancient alchemists used the alchemical practice as a kind of metaphor. They would talk about things as if it's like turning lead into gold, but actually they're talking about the transmutative process of taking an unhealthy part of yourself or negative energy that you've been harboring and transmuting it into something positive, aka gold.
Mm-hmm.
And another big part of their thing is the integration of opposites. And so the Philosopher's Stone is created when all internal opposites are in harmony. And it's said to give you everlasting life, cure diseases, all kinds of stuff. Basically, that's your energy flow. And so for a very long time, for about 10 years, I've been practicing the art of integrating internal opposites. And so every single time you do shadow integration, what you're really doing is dealing with the conflict between, like, let's say this part of me really wants a relationship, but this part of me is afraid of it. That's what you're dealing with. An argument
Mm-hmm.
between the two sides. This part of me wants money. This part of me afraid of having it. Let's have a conversation between the two and figure
Mm-hmm.
out what they have to add and what they're freaked out about and how they can support each other. So leading up to this, up in like this last year, I've been integrating opposites as a life path for 9 years,
Mm-hmm.
and so it was just kind of a very natural expression of that.
Got it. Got it. So within that, is there like for somebody who wants to get into this kind of work or do this kind of thing, is there I want to say like an initial practice that you would give somebody? Like, would it be like them sort of let's give the example of being in a relationship and uh, my desire to be like alone, right? And there's these benefits and costs, and there's this tug of war that can exist between those two things. Like, do you go and like would I go sit down and journal about it and write out the pros and cons on both sides, and then kind of sit and like talk without it? Would I sit into some sort of a hypnosis kind of track and kind of more emotionally talk within these two parts? Like, how would you? Yeah, what kind of thing would you give somebody who wants to kind of begin this style of work and have it work for them?
That's a great question. So the framework that I teach is basically it starts like this. Like you have to come up with a vision for how you want your life or your relationships or your career or whatever to be. You have to know where you're aiming. And you also have to give your internal resources, all the parts in you, something to organize around. Like gives them structure, gives them purpose, gives them context for their existence. And so once you do that, once you say this is where we're going, this is where we're aiming, the parts of you that are on board with that get on board. And then the parts of you that are not on board with that start to speak up. And then it's your job to just listen. So it's beautiful because you don't actually have to go looking for your shadow. Like you don't have to go looking for anything. All you have to do is get clear on who you want to be, what kind of life you want to live, and walk in that direction. And eventually something's going to come up to get in your way.
Mm-hmm.
So my mentality is kind of like if it's not broke, don't fix it. You going to say something?
Yeah, I was just saying. So once that, I guess my question is like once that conflict comes up, what do I do then as I was like a novice shadow practitioner?
So what I did in the beginning and what I would recommend as somebody new is first of all, judge your self-awareness and emotional capacity. Maybe do a little bit of sitting meditation and see if you get really anxious or see if you get really overwhelmed or something. And then I would maybe start with a mindfulness practice for a few weeks leading up to it. Because if you just start going into shadow integration, you're kind of opening Pandora's box and you don't know what's going to be in there. And you don't know how well you're going to be able to hold any of it. So it could dysregulate you. It could, like, you could just start acting angrily because you've opened up a new pocket of anger that you don't know how to deal with. And suddenly you're fucking yelling at everybody. So there's like things to be aware of. However, your mind does have a lot of natural defenses against that. Like it doesn't really let you look at stuff that you're not ready to look at unless you're on psychedelics, in which case be very fucking careful because the normal defenses are not there during psychedelics. And so you can open up shit that you're not ready to look at. However, for most people, your mind is designed to not let you look at stuff you're not willing or ready to see yet. So you have these kind of built-in mechanisms, but you still want to judge your capacity. You still want to judge, what happens when you sit with yourself and just get a sense for how much you can do. And then from there, if you're feeling safe, if you're feeling like it's okay to start doing this, then what I would recommend doing is, like you said, take out a sheet of paper and let each part of your personality just express itself through you. Like completely just stream of consciousness. And they might argue, so you might have to go back and forth. You might have to be like, I really want to go do this thing. And the other part's going to be like, oh, but it's so fucking scary. And what if everyone hates us? And it's like, well, but like, I'd really like it. And blah, blah, blah. And so like, you might go back and forth for a little bit. The idea is to let both sides express everything they have to express. Because like, after you vent, like you're angry about something and somebody lets you vent, and then you take a deep breath and you kind of think a little bit more clearly and you're like, fuck, I'm glad I got that out.
Mm-hmm.
It's the same type of deal. You want to let both parts vent everything out. Partially because that's going to get everything out of their system, allow them to take that deep breath and relax and think more clearly. But when you look over it later, you're going to be able to parse out, like, what specifically are they afraid of? Yeah. Like, I want to have tons of money, but I'm afraid it'll turn me into a shit person. It's like, okay, great. What about it might turn me into a shit person? Is there any part of me that already wants to be a shit person? If so, let me address that. And then once that's addressed, then all of a sudden the part of me that wants money and this other guy over here can be like, yeah, let's go get the money because the thing I was worried about has been dealt with. So let's go fucking get it. Mm-hmm. So that's kind of what the integration process looks like in real time. And that's how you can kind of get both sides on board. Like one side wants something and the other doesn't, and it's got good reason. So once you address them, it kind of teaches you how to go do the thing that you want to do in a way that you'll feel good about.
Got it. So by taking that time to kind of let all of that stuff breathe, you're able to, from what I'm hearing, let the air out, but also in a lot of ways almost get like this awesome brainstorming experience, right? Where you're getting all these ideas and processes out there that allows you to then kind of go from being stuck in the mind, which is for me, one of the best things I found about journaling is just like the closed loops that have been going on in my mind over and over and over again are able to actually just like stop because there's a period finally, and they have a place to go versus just being these kind of incomplete sentences in my head. And then once those are out there, you're able to kind of say have that hovering awareness or consciousness that's allowed to really, like you said, integrate those experiences and kind of make that, I would say, more complete decision rather than it being this kind of binary choice. Is that accurate?
Exactly. Because every single part of you has something valuable to offer. I've been doing this for 10 years and I've never found a single part of myself that didn't have some value or wisdom or insight that I could actually integrate into my life. So when you go forward with that assumption and understanding, it's like, yeah, sure, I'll face whatever. Like, let's do this. Let's figure it out.